What up y'all, it's T-Tar, and today we're going to be talking about what the new mythical Pokemon could be. I've been making these Kintaro videos, of course, but today I want to propose a completely different idea for what this Pokemon could be in a different direction, unrelated to Kintaro entirely. See, I love the Kintaro idea, but the one thing I can't get past, even though I made a video talking about how they could get past it, is that the man is very clearly a man in the Peach Run story, and the narrator calls him a man, the mask maker calls him a man. Even though it's possible that it could be a Pokemon that looked enough like a man to pass, or a Pokemon that can disguise itself as a man like some Pokemon can do, it's a little too contrived for me to make that jump, and so it's made me not like the Kintaro theories as much. So I've been thinking in my head about an alternate theory to answer this, because I really want to figure out the mythical before they reveal it, and I've come to a new conclusion. So Kintaro, you're in the grave for now. Unless it turns out to be Kintaro, then I gotta pretend like I was your friend the whole time. And I'm gonna explain just what's interesting about this theory. So the reason I came up with it is going back to Ku's tweet here. Remember he said, you know, yeah, the 1, it goes down with the X is the amount of forms 1 will have. Forget that tweet. I'm talking about the tweet where he describes the 1, where he says, no one's figured out what the 1 is. Now this was back in September, but he says, that 1 is a very purposeful Pokemon. And so I've been sitting here thinking, what would constitute something to be a purposeful Pokemon? On one hand, you can say it has something to do with Terapagus's powers, like it's this Pokemon that pulled out Terapagus's powers when it was sleeping and caused all the Area Zero phenomenons, right? Purposeful Pokemon. What does that mean, purposeful? I don't even know if you could call Ogerpon a purposeful Pokemon in that sense. Maybe Peachran a little, because it grants the loyal 3 its chains, right? But then I came to one conclusion, and as you can see by the title, this is the theory I'm gonna propose. By the way, I've still been offline, so I don't know if the Kintaro videos, you love them and you don't want me to make this, but I like this idea. The theory is that the new Pokemon is the 5th Ruinous Pokemon, the leader of the Ruinous 4. Now, to scratch the surface on this, we've never had a quintuplet of legendaries before, a leader that rules 4. We have quartets, you know, we have the genies, we have a quintuplet ruled by a leader, which is Regigigas and the 5 golems. And the closest we have to a 4 led by a 1 is kind of the Tapus being led by, you would imagine, something before. Right? But even that's not confirmed, that there was like a bigger Tapu before. But this would be a theory that, kind of like Regigigas ruling 5, there's actually a leader to these Ruinous Pokemon, and they were sealed away. I've got all the details sorted in my head, so I'm gonna make this make sense to you. The Ruinous Pokemon, the story behind them is very vague. We don't know who this old king is and what kingdom collapsed because of the Ruinous Pokemon, but to simplify the Pokemon world, we're gonna choose the path of least resistance, which is that the old Paldean king and the ones who fell because of the Ruinous Pokemon are one and the same. Because it works out. The old Paldean king existed 2,000 years ago, and that same greed sounds like what was causing him and his descendants for 1,000 years to constantly send people down to Area Zero. And they probably made it a decent ways down to find the Terra Crystals. So they bring it back to them, and they're so greedy, they want more, they want to uncover the truth of the Terra Crystals, so they keep sending more and more. And then this same greed causes them to look outward for more treasures, and this introduces the Ruinous Pokemon. So, the last Paldean king of that lineage, so around 1,000 years ago, we're gonna say that's the man who's involved with the Ruinous King story. So that's the first part of my theory, right? The idea here is that there were actually 5 Ruinous Pokemon, and that the 4 were sealed around the region, and the 5th one was sealed somewhere very special. I'm not so sure I want to call it the leader of the Ruinous Pokemon, because there's a really weird idea I compose here. But the idea would be that the survivors of this pre-Paldean king empire that fell, they went around and tried to seal the Ruinous Pokemon away to at least save whatever was left of Paldean. So they hunted down Ting-Liu, Chi-Yu, all 4 of them, Shenpao, and they sealed them in different sections around Paldea and made sure to seal them as far away from each other as possible. They were unified in their attack against the king. That's why they're the 4 Ruinous Pokemon. They wanted to make sure they can't get close to each other to unify again if somehow they broke out or could communicate with each other. So they sealed them as far away from each other as possible. We're just gonna link it to the current ongoing thought, which is that that's the mythical Pokemon. Let's say that is the 5th Ruinous Pokemon that was sealed, and to make it sealed as far away from the other 4, and because they already had knowledge of Area Zero, and they knew it was a place they could go back down to, that's where they sealed it. In the very depths, furthest away from all the other ones, because it may not necessarily be their leader in a conventional sense, but it is stronger than them and is the most dangerous. And so you may be asking, okay, so they sealed the fifth one in Area Zero. Where is the ancient seal? Okay, so this fifth Pokemon wasn't sealed in the same way as the other ones. For a reason, maybe it couldn't be sealed in the same way. The best they could do was physically seal it somewhere and make sure it can't get out. And the seal I'm talking about is something we mistook a lot for these ancient people who had technology in Area Zero. It's that slab. You see, when we go to Area Zero, the slab is on the ground. But do you remember what Heath writes in his book? Very quickly in Heath's journey, this idiot, within like 2 days, found a very peculiar room. I'm gonna show y'all Heath's book right here, right? Page 1, they're on the surface of Area Zero. Page 2, they're venturing down. Page 3, they've already moved that tablet. The tablet was not left by these ancient technological people. It's the seal for the fifth Ruinous Pokemon. So let's look at the symbol of that. You see, to this day, we don't know what this symbol means, but it's on the cover of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet with no explanation, even after we've beaten the whole game and seemingly all of the DLC. Only thing left is this movie. So this could be why Ku called it a purposeful Pokemon, because it's on the physical logos of the game. This hourglass looking thing. This thing might not have to do anything with Terrapagus or time because it looks like an hourglass. It might have to do with the Paldean King and the Ruinous Pokemon. It is an unscratchable, solid thing. I don't know how the Paldean King got it, but they used it to seal the fifth Ruinous Pokemon in this cave forever. But of course, before they lured the Ruinous Pokemon there, they did something to that room. For future generations, if for some reason they need to find the Ruinous Pokemon, maybe protect themselves, they left a map. You see, this was day 2 of their expedition. This page is shown first, and then only later does he start documenting the Pokemon of Area Zero, and one of them is a gorilla. So you could see the order of it, if the order is true. But you see with this symbol here, there was a theory that came out very quickly after Scarlet and Violet first came out in 2022, which is a really weird theory. It's that it was just a picture that was floating around the internet, right? The idea is if you took Paldean and copy and pasted it 3 times adjacent to each other and match it with that symbol, that it actually points to the 4 Ruinous Pokemon where they were sealed. And at first, this seemed kind of contrived. Like, is this really the way to solve this? There's no shot. Like, why couldn't it just be one circle with 4 X's on it, right? But I'm gonna accept this idea for this theory. Let's say this is a map. The ancient people, the Paldean King's mans, they drew this map here and marked the locations of the 4 that, look, they put as far away as possible from each other at the nose of all the triangles, and there's a square in the middle to mark something sealed that much further away. This is just talking about distance from each other, right? Or else every circle would have an area 0 in the middle, but this would be where the 5th one is sealed away. Look at what Heath's notes are. Note the strange symbols inscribed in the ground here. Were they left by explorers in the time of the Paldean Empire, or could they be older still? So it'd be fitting if it actually was the Paldean King. Regardless, they seem as if they must hold some meaning. To this day, the same as the hourglass symbol, we have no idea what this means. And this is also a symbol on the Scarlet and Violet logo. So that's 2 symbols to this day that we don't know the meaning of. Back to Ku's tweet, that one is a very purposeful Pokemon. This makes a lot of sense. This one is gonna explain what those 2 symbols are. So the idea is this Ruinous Pokemon is very passive, but extremely strong if you enraged it. And so it was sealed in this room, a different seal than the conventional ones the other ones were done in because they were weaker. And the moment Heath opened it, he didn't notice, but this gorilla eventually left. And it's passive mostly, so it didn't attack Heath or anything. But if Heath were to poke with the stick, it is extremely dangerous. It would have its own ability, you know, where it raises a certain stat. It would have Ruination as well, but it would be stronger than the other 4. So check it out. This is the 3rd page of Heath's book, right? You go a couple pages later of him documenting his journey. Then he starts to sketch the Pokemon he sees. The Flamigos, Glamoras, Knucklestacks, and this unknown gorilla, which he doesn't know his team just accidentally unsealed from that place that they were poking their nose into. Let's say this gorilla spent a lot of time in this seal, it's discombobulated, and so it's just wandering Area 0. Also, if it doesn't know how to use the equipment, it can't climb out, unless it climbs the walls like King Kong, which it could have done. I guess it could have, but this is why he saw this mysterious gorilla in Area 0. Alright, so let's go later in this book where he talks about the plate, which we're kind of trying to call is the seal. During our descent into Area 0, we came across a buried metal plate inscribed with a strange symbol. We attempted to shave off a piece of the plate, but failed to leave even a scratch. Even determining the nature of the metal seems beyond modern science. We know not why the inscription was made, let alone how. So it could be the symbol of the Paldean king or a warning in the language of that time saying, warning, do not open this. So I'm ending this video with this, right? Here's the theory I'm putting forward. That gorilla, the reason I'm saying it's not the leader of the Ruinous 4 in the conventional sense is because I'm saying that gorilla is the Paldean king. You know the story of stuff like King Midas, where he wants everything to be gold until it consumes him? So this Ruinous Pokemon, what is a bigger punishment to the greed he had than not only were the Ruinous Pokemon, the day his kingdom fell, not only were the Ruinous Pokemon attacking him, when they said his kingdom was brought to ruin by the Ruinous Pokemon, he was so overcome with greed, he turned into that. So while the 4 Ruinous Pokemon were attacking the old Paldean king, he's the one that actually ultimately caused its destruction when he got all his greed personified, manifested, and it transformed it into this hideous, greedy creature, and he destroyed his kingdom. And he's the most dangerous Ruinous Pokemon that they had to hunt down and seal last, and so they put him as far away as possible from the others and had to seal him in a different way. And with this plugged in, you can look back at Ku's tweet. That one is a very purposeful Pokemon. That adds a stronger meaning to make sense of that tweet. He's obviously lost all his humanity, but he would be the final Ruinous Pokemon, and it's the ultimate comeuppance for this king, because remember what the 4 Ruinous Pokemon represent, right? One of them have all the evil deeds done by the king. They all describe how bad the king was and how he deserves his comeuppance, his ruin. What better way to bring his ruin than to have him destroy his own kingdom? That's the theory. Make sure you shank that like button. Let me know your thoughts. I got a lot more to say on this, but I wanted to give y'all a proper feel of this so we could escape the Kintaro train, just because I've started to grow sick of it. But yeah, I like talking about different ideas, right? So maybe a week from now I have a new theory for what this is, but this is the one I'm sticking to now. So hope y'all enjoyed. I'll see y'all in the next one. Take care.